Okay, perfect. So Hayden, I was just telling you how amazing you are. So now that we have this on the record, no, first couple of pages, especially excellent. I'm getting a real visual sense, and that's kind of what I was looking for from the beginning. Because I think you're such a strong visual writer. You have I think, a very strong ability to create a mental picture with what you're writing. If anything, that the things that along the way, whether it's this or the BPA that I'm suggesting, changes along, it's because the picture you paint is so vivid that when the words seem to clash with what you're doing, that's when it becomes noticeable. So that's a great problem to have, is when the problem, so to speak, that you're having with what you're writing is because what you're writing over here is so strong. And I'm not saying that just to be falsely flattering. It's so strong that when something is grammatically or otherwise out of sync with it, or not properly setting it up, in my opinion, it's like, oh, let's bring that up to the same level as the great visual stuff that Hayden's doing. So then getting them not knowing how to get to room 215, finally finding it, getting into the room, stuffed with students. I'm getting a real strong, what I was always looking for in this scene was a sense, like, of what is it like to be a student on campus. So that whole feeling of being late for a class and freaking out because you're late. Go for it if you need to.
No, my dog is just making a googly eye.
Okay. Anything that you can do to create that sense of what it's like to be a student, to be Thomas, and not just a student generally, and Thomas specifically. And you've done that now, I think. So walks into the class. I get a sense. I can almost hear the noise of the students murmur, talking to each other and whatever else. I can really get a sense. And then when Lake comes into the room, he's coming in majestically. He's coming in. I didn't want to encourage you to go like all the way into the stereotype of the king entering his court, but sort of. Right. So that sort of Italian clothes, messy blonde hair, emerald green eyes. He's clearly kind of a handsome guy. I imagine him fit. He's young. He's barely 30. So he's got all of these things working for him. It's sort of an Indiana Jones walking into the classroom in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where all the girls are completely crushing on Harrison Ford. And he's too into what he's teaching to notice it. That's what I love, is that Harrison Ford was such a heartthrob. And in the early 80s, especially when Indiana Jones came out, he just didn't even understand why the girls were checking him out. So everything else is for drama. So most of the things I'm going to suggest here are to take the excellent scene I think you've already written and simply dial up the drama at key points to make it just even more fun. And sometimes that's going to be about a movement of, mostly of Lake, or that's going to be about dramatic pauses in the middle of him talking about what he's talking about. There's one whole section I'm going to encourage you just to scrap because it's interesting, but it doesn't feel necessary at this time. I'll give you the preview right now. It's all the detail about Titan. When we get to there, I'm going to suggest that's good stuff to tell me later when him and Thomas probably have a moment. So I would save that, put it on the shelf, pull it out down later when you're having a in-lab conversation with Thomas. But because this scene is all about give the students and us as the reader only as much information as absolutely necessary to tell us what we need to know about Lake and about the discovery, the meteor, all of that stuff. And then get onto the fun stuff, which is the students asking the questions, leading up to the most interesting thing of all, when Miss Mac challenges him. So I want to get to that. So I don't want to rush to Miss Mac. I want to take the time and lay out whatever you want to lay out. But once you've laid that out, I would get right to Mac. Love all this with shut up, don't you know what he is? He proved aliens are real. He's the alien. And my suggestion would be, rather than saying alien twice, and it's only a suggestion, shut up, don't you know who he is? He's the alien guy from the Discovery Channel. Don't say he proved aliens are real, because he's about to prove that aliens are real. So let that happen rather than have somebody say the exciting thing is to let, to know, sort of like, being told, oh yeah, there's Indiana Jones, the guy who usually shoots people in the street, and then he shoots people in the street and you're like, fuck you for telling me he was going to shoot us in the street.
Just stick with he's the alien guy from the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, 100%. I almost was going to suggest you take out the alien thing. I thought, no, I like that he's doing that, but probably not. Let him prove that aliens are real in his next thing rather than steal his thunder. Dr. Lake strutted up to the podium, turned on the projector with a click of a remote, immediately displayed a microscopic biome, took up the wall, display of a microscopic biome, took up the wall behind him, full of bacteria, amoebas, pterogrades, protozoas. I might not add tardigrades into that. I might just say, and let us have the tardigrade in the next moment. Or say in protozoa, currently a tardigrade was eating bacteria on screen, that I might, so you can, again, take or leave this. I might have, if it was me and it was Tom Hiddleston playing Lake, like I can imagine him sort of going, swish, like almost a Count Olaf, Jim Carrey, there's just a little bit of drama there, take or leave it. Then let's get into what he says. Little things, tiny little things, like for life to exist at all, never mind sentient life, a miracle is required, is technically the right way to say that. Rather than for life to exist requires a miracle. I love this. Now, most of what I'm going to suggest here is to truncate what he says. Short, choppy sentences that are more fun to listen to. Again, not required. Take or leave it. So, for example, for life to exist at all, never mind sentient life, a miracle is required. Ask your local church, they'll say God. Ask a scientist, they'll tell you it's the unbending laws of nature. Now, the reason I would recommend, and again, not trying to write your script for you, but the reason I would stress that religious people say God, scientific people say unbending laws of nature, is because, as you can see with my note at the bottom of that page, what do God and unbending laws of nature have in common? A false confidence that we know and understand how life in the cosmos works. So whether you're a religious person saying God explains everything, or a scientist saying nothing can exist outside of the laws of nature, which we understand, he's about to say no to both of those. No, neither the religious people. So I was looking for the thing, if you're going to bring up religious people and scientists, what do they have in common? They both pretend to know. Like what the way, what is what, and I'm about to prove all of them wrong, is essentially what he's saying. Take or leave that. Then let me just see here. Then I love this. So again, take or leave these, Hayden. I love the idea that he's smart enough to know how to take highly complex. This is to me one of the things that appears to be something that would be fun about Lake. Whether he's right or he's wrong, whether he's arrogant or not, he has an uncanny ability to take big scientific concepts and break them down and make them understandable to the average person. That's the sort of Lake you gave me from the beginning, which is what I always liked about him. So you could go this route. Like when we think of places you might find life in the universe, we typically think of the Goldilocks zone around the stars, where water would be liquid in its natural state. Then I've suggested up above, too close to too close to the sun. Let me just rephrase this. I don't know why it's doing this. There we go. I'm going to say too close to a nearby sun, obviously. Hyperbolic. Suns are never nearby, but too close to a nearby sun, the water simply evaporates. Too far, and it turns to ice. And if it was me, I'd definitely ask the actor to walk up with a fountain pop of Coke. He says, and so he said, too far, and it turns to ice. Ha 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 ha. The audience. Only under the most perfect conditions could life have any chance at all. Huh, this is what they say. But switches slides to the tar. What if I told you it just ain't so like Lake, what I'm proposing here is that Lake's magic, his almost cult-like ability to get so many people on his side, isn't simply that he discovers cool things like he's about to tell us about, but that he's controversial. He claims to know what others don't know, and he has a way of just bringing it right down to earth and making it really, really, like, he's a good salesman. That's what I love about Lake. He's not just a great scientist. He's more significantly, forgive the comparison, kind of a Michael Coleman personality. Whether he's right or he's wrong, you can't escape his orbit, because what he's saying is kind of, this has this magnetic pull, right? So take or leave that as well. Now, when we get down to the tardigrade, I love what you've done here. So again, I'm just suggesting tweaks to, either these, whether you use these words or not. As the hardy tardigrade demonstrates, life can endure conditions that would mean certain death for humans, Arctic waters, blah, blah, blah. That's great. How many worlds might the hardy tardigrade be capable of surviving? My suggestion might be so much for perfect conditions, right? Some snooty and sticker and delight. Oh, this guy's good. Because again, he's riffing on his opening premise, which is like, these two groups of people think they have it figured out. I'm here to tell you they don't. Take, for example, the tardigrade. My suggestion would be cut right to the chase. So I would go something like that. So much for perfect conditions. Make it less scientific, much more relatable would be my suggestion. And if the tardigrade can survive in such environments deemed inhospitable by our greatest minds, Who knows what else is out there? And I think that's an important bridge to say, because you're saying, we think the universe works like this and life on Earth can only exist under these conditions. Look at the tardigrade. If this thing exists, what else might be out there? So it's sort of like bridging the gap to the next part of his talk, right? Well, you'll be, and then something like this, my suggestion, well, you'll be excited to know that I have found the answer. He's just said that he's comparing himself to our greatest minds. So my suggestion is like this, the greatest minds say this, well, you'll be excited to know I have found the answer. My suggestion would be have the students go, ooh, show us Ms. Mac. A strong suggestion. When everybody's going, oh my God, my suggestion would be, Thomas looked over at a young woman, didn't know her name, but noticed she was the one student who wasn't fawning all over, and maybe it's Rebecca that notices. And so she has a connection with, of course, being a woman, she looks over at Mac and goes, okay, not everybody's drinking this Kool-Aid. She's not. And I love that you might just, don't put a big flashlight on Mac, but maybe just introduce her here, rolling her eyes while everybody else is jizzing all over, Dr. Lake. You can, whether you keep this line, then I discovered alien life. I'm looking for the slickest, sexiest sales position. And I almost want him to save it. I want him to not say, then I discovered alien life. He says, what if I told you they were all wrong? That's sexier to me. Love the fact that he's got an actual visual and everybody goes, oh, like, I love this. This is my favorite part, a massive single cell organism. And my suggestion might be that you don't give it the name Alienus, even though I thought that was, that's kind of cute. I might avoid a name because
I can't think of anything better.
I would avoid it because if he makes up a name that isn't scientific.
Well, it is Latin, so technically it is scientific.
Right. Yeah, it's Latin, that's for sure. But I might avoid it. And I would suggest that you drop, when I remove them from cold storage, they let back to life. I thought, oh, so anybody who pulled it out of cold storage, that would have happened. My suggestion would be, plus I wouldn't want him to say anything that would be obviously, lead some people in the room to go, what? You named it Alienus and you pulled it out of cold storage and it came to life? Sounds a little fishy, but my suggestion might be to just keep it. I discovered they're chemically, this is the one bit of science I would definitely encourage you to keep in, which I love. I discovered they're chemically different from anything we know on Earth. They inhale this, all of this stuff is great. They use acetylene instead of sugar as an energy source. And my suggestion would be this particular sentence. So I like what you do here when you say, well, I discovered they're like this, and you're sort of going briefly into the science of it. And my suggestion would be before he says, but despite all of that, they can live on Earth, dramatic pause, look at the room. And yet, despite all that, despite the, these are my words, take them or leave them, the apparent incongruity of their physiology of their own, they appear to live quite well on our little planet. Or you can just cut right to the chase. And yet, despite all that, they appear to live quite well on our little planet. Take or leave this. He says, this microbe came over 72 light minutes from its frozen home world all the way to Earth, laid buried, frozen, and still alive. How amazing is that? My thought was, you could take or leave this. I would love it. It's just an option. You might hate this, but I love the idea that he's actually showing them a video of this thing moving, like actually alive. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. Is that, oh my God, he hasn't just found life. He's proven, look at it, it's moving. And he says, Dr. Lake, is that real? Well, no, this is a 3D simulation of what it would be like. It's in deep hibernation, but when it wakes up, boy, this is what it's going to do, which is sort of some people going, and it's almost a test to see, okay, if that's the best he's got, how many people are buying it? You may hate that, so don't keep that if you want to. But I would probably drop all this Titan stuff here, cut through all of that, because once we get to here, once you've had him get to this point, but he says, and I found this thing on, this thing, I've just talked about the tardigrade. Look at this. This thing is alive, kind of like the tardigrade. Excited murmuring, love this. The question, he says, sir, could life on Titan come to Earth and live here? I'm wondering if that's the best question, because that's his whole point. Well, yeah, that's my whole point, is that life on Titan could come and live here. And I thought, what are some other ways of maybe phrasing that? So play with this or not, or leave it just the way it is. How likely is it that life, because this is the question that's not being asked, that seems like it could be a good question. He's just demonstrated that life can exist in non-ideal conditions. He's given the tardigrade as an example. He showed a meteorite that demonstrates potential life from Titan. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I think he's made, if not a definitive case, about as good a case as anybody could make for the idea that there is life out there, number one, and that it can come here and live. So the most interesting question to me potentially is not, could life on Titan come to Earth and live here, which is sort of the whole point he's been making, but rather, how likely is it that life from Titan could, ever find its way? I should say ever, not every, could ever find its way here? Because that's the most interesting question to me is, okay, but how could that ever get? Okay, so you found a meteorite, great. One in a big gajillion chance that that'll ever come. Well, how likely is it that life from other planets could come here? You've established they could live here. How likely is it that they could? I mean, it's got to be 1 billion to 1, right? Mm-hmm. And I love an answer that doesn't really answer the question, but still keeps people going, which is, well, we've already seen that what science considers impossible, lies entirely within the realm of possibility. He's just proven that he thinks he's proven, and certainly all of his fans believe he's proven that the experts sometimes are wrong. It's really what he's saying. So, well, it's almost like he's saying, well, I don't know. Like a truthful answer would be, yeah, honestly, it's probably about 1 billion to 1. Yeah, probably that. So that would kill his whole class. So he would never say that. So he'd say, well, it might be unlikely, but it's possible, is basically what he's saying. I say, why not? Especially if it turns out that life is more evolved than we think. In other words, if that life is more evolved than we think, not only could it come here, but it might have evolved to the point where it's found a way to get here. So it depends on how much you want to set up what's coming. But I think that is, at least I'm throwing that at you as a potentially interesting question. I might cut out the, is it possible you might be wrong here, because I think she's making a strong enough point without having to repeat it. The only reason I'm crossing out research down here and putting findings is because he tells her she said research in the very next sentence. So I love the way you're setting this up. This is as strong as you've ever had it. Mm-hmm. I read an article from Dr. Cloud that he wasn't 100% convinced by your findings. Apparently, he came to a different conclusion from you. Is that true? And I would keep it there rather than, is it possible you might be wrong? She's gently leading him into the trap. So I wouldn't have her say, is it possible you're full of shit, doctor? Because then his question, well, yes, if you do your research a little more, And I thought, rather than her say, funny you mentioned that, because that sounded kind of like an odd way to respond, even though I've said that as well. It says, you're right. You're right. A person should do some more research. So, that's what I thought too. So I did do the research. So in other words, she's already anticipating it. I did some more digging, and so take or leave this. I found that other leading experts, because I thought about it, well, what is the academic, the governing, it should be academic body. Well, what is that? Let's not try to find a name for it or do a bunch of, just say other leading experts in xenobiology, which I spelled wrong, are skeptical of your conclusions because they haven't been properly peer-reviewed and they were unable to verify key pieces of evidence. Good, solid, that's it. In other words, some people are, okay, Dr. Cloud differed with your findings. Then a bunch of other experts weren't sure if they could rely on your research to begin with because it's never been peer-reviewed and they haven't been able to establish any, of your evidence. So at this point, Mac is great because at this point, not only is she flipping on him the idea that she should have done proper research by showing she has done proper research, but she says, well, I've got these, and of course she's got it right there, that says like, so doesn't your whole thing fall up, not that it falls apart, but how can you, almost as if saying it without saying it, she's saying, how can you stand in front of a class full of people and declare this as probably true when the entire academic community you come from either disagrees with you or says that it's never once been backed up? Mm-hmm. So if this is great. This is a perfect line of attack. I'm loving this. Well, yes, they didn't have access to everything. So I'm going to propose that you take out everything that's unnecessarily inflammatory and just stick with the facts and let them speak strongly. So rather than, so I said, I have a quote from Dr. Rhodes here, and quote, when we asked Dr. Lake to share with us, he was unwilling to sit with our team, became combative. In one instance, during a copy of his book at the head of the Academy President's Executive Assistant. I love that you made all that up from nowhere. I'm kidding. You say all that, and then and just leave it there. He threw the book. Dr. Lake doesn't say anything. He's just staring at her. I mean, I'm just quoting Rhodes. Like, I love that she would like get off the, says, I'm not meaning to attack you. I'm just quoting doing the research you just told me I should do, right? So, I mean, I'm just quoting Rhodes based on my research, but he said there's been no independent verification of your claims within the scientific community at all, and that your theory was little more than let me just read this right, little more than a flight of fancy from a man less in love with science than science fiction. And I love that she would just like she first of all, she should not be a scientist, she should be a lawyer. This woman would destroy anybody in court.
Actually, I was thinking of a journalist was her major.
Perfect, even better. I mean, it's the same process, right?
Yeah, she's not here for Lake's class. She's here like a vulture to like feed off his failure to boost her own.
You know what you could even do in this? You could say, and you could say where he doesn't know. He says, "Yes, Miss. What's yeah, Miss Mac," and then she says all this. He goes, "Sorry," like in the middle of all this, he says, "I'm sorry. Are you?" Like his response to this, where he says, I did some digging and found that blah, blah, blah. They're experts and are skeptical of your research and say it's not peer reviewed, that they were unable to verify key pieces of evidence. And his response could be something like, I'm sorry, are you a student in this class? He goes, no, actually, I'm a journalism major, but, I had some time to kill. So like you could absolutely drop that in there because then he can't fuck with her, right? Like you could play like, he could be like, he's thinking, I'm going to fail this girl for saying, he can't fail her. She's not even in his program or department. And I'm like, ugh. So I love your instincts with the journalism thing. Play with that. That could be fun. That could be really fun. You could also potentially use this person if she's either a scientist or a journalist later on. Like maybe she's maybe her whole thing at the university is to discredit Lake. I mean, let that percolate. Don't say yes or no to it because this is a wicked thing. This is what I love about workshops because this is getting pulled right out of your own story here. But it's just brilliant what you've done here. You've got a nice sequence of attack on here. She starts light, then she digs a little deeper, and then she goes in for the kill. And that's exactly how you would do it. You don't go in for the kill with the first question. You go in for the kill with the last question, so that he's like speechless, which is perfect what you have here. Take or leave my suggestion here. Dr. Lake was glaring at Miss Mac so hard that Thomas felt a bit uncomfortable. No, my suggestion would be everybody, not just Thomas, is shitting their pants level uncomfortable. And my suggestion would be something along this line. The room went silent as Dr. Lake glared at Ms. Mac. Students shifted in their seats uncomfortably as time itself seemed to grind to a halt. Thomas swallowed hard as Mac, that should say hard, not heard. I got the Johnny Depp trial in my head. As Mac sat back in her chair with a smirk, suddenly the lecture hall door flew open and in comes that, because I don't see Mac as being interrupted here. I believe that Mac has already finished her deliberations. She's done everything she wants to do. And it has left. He says, Dr. Rose just said that you're more in love with science fiction than science. Care to comment? Like that's how a journalist would finish that. Care to comment? But she's done. Her job is done. She has completely taken this guy's clothes off in front of all of his students, which is all she clearly wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then we go into the next thing. Take or leave any of these suggestions to tweak. One of my favorite scenes you've ever written. I think this is absolutely an evolution in your writing. This is something that goes way beyond what you've done with the BPA. And I mean it when I say congratulations for being willing to take the feedback and just run with it. Because I've worked with a lot of people. We stay stalled on a scene for weeks and weeks and weeks because they're unwilling to make any changes. Not because I'm Jesus and automatic, all my advice is best.
They're just not willing to rip out parts and then.
It's too precious. They're too close to it. They're too precious to it. What I love is that you are eminently pragmatic. You're willing to do whatever it takes to make the story hum.
Yeah, if I'm not getting paid, then it's not worth it.
Nice. But this is solid, man. This is now we got a story. Oh. Now we're humming along.
Honestly, I'm amazed how many writers I've talked to whose like metric of success isn't based on how much they're getting paid for a story. Like I'd assume that's like the only metric you can really measure it by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what a person's motivated by, right? Like everybody's got a different psychological motivation. I'm the same as you. I'd be like, yeah, show me the money. Or the pure delight of it. I mean, some people just love. I've definitely written things just for the pure delight of it. But
oh yeah,
at this stage in your life, I would totally.
My reason for saying the money though isn't just because I'm pragmatic, but it's also because at the end of the day, there's really not a lot you can do to like objectively measure how good a story is, because at the end of the day, it's all subjective. So the only really good measurement is how successful the story was.
Exactly.
Like, people can say
Yeah.
they hate Transformers or they hate Spider-Man or whatever, but at the end of the day, those cleared billions of dollars at the box office, so clearly they're better than whatever you're serving up.
Yeah, and I've never believed it's either or. I don't ever shit on a movie just because it was successful. Like that's one of those things I'll never understand why people do this is, oh, it was a big successful blockbuster. Uh-huh. He says, "Oh, it automatically can have a good story." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" There's a lot of really great. Yeah, I recognize there's a lot of shit out there,
Honestly,
but some
I judge blockbusters more harshly because like you had millions of dollars, you better not fuck this up.
totally. And that's why it's always such a delight when you do see a film that clearly they
Yeah.
spent a lot of money on and it had a good
Did
story.
you see the new Uncharted movie?
I haven't yet. No.
It was based off of a video game, but it's basically Indiana Jones. It's a return to Indiana Jones proper.
Is it? And I've played all the games. Is the movie good?
Yeah, it's good.
Did you like
It
it?
doesn't perfectly match up to games. There's a lot of bits taken from different scenes, but it was really good. It made me feel like I was watching Indiana Jones when I was a kid again, and Andrew Garfield got to basically renew his role as Spider-Man and jumped around a bunch.
I mean, I thought it was great. I loved that movie. Are you when you say Andrew Garfield, do you mean Tom Holland?
Oh yeah, that's the one. Crap.
Yeah, Spider-Man was great. I want to see Uncharted because I do love the games a lot. I'm
Even
looking
have
forward to.
Nathan Drake's original voice actor do a cameo.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. It's it's hilarious.
What's his name?
I can't remember, but I immediately recognized his voice the moment he started talking, and it's like, oh my god, that's the original.
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, I have sent you notes
Perfect.
for this. So yeah, great work, Hayden. I'm loving the progress on this. Same time next week, or do you want to do Monday?
I'd like to skip next week. Simply
Okay.
Because I'm going, like I said, I'm going to my friend's funeral.
Oh, right.
So
Of course.
I'm going to skip out on any source of extra pressure. I'll still do some work.
Totally
I'm
fair.
probably going to do like a little more work than I normally do, but yeah.
So do you want me to bank this section next week's session then?
Yeah.
Okay. Just make a note of that. May 16, and we will resume on the 23rd. Resume May 23rd. Okay, I will send you an email either way just to confirm that. And but otherwise, yeah, good luck to your friend for sure, and we'll see you on the 23rd.
I'm gonna go spend my weekend comforting or maybe getting yelled at by him. I don't know. I'm just gonna let him do whatever and work out his crap.
Yeah, that's sweet of you. Good friend. All right. Well, good luck with that, and have a really, really great week.
Will do.
Take care.
See you in 2 weeks, I guess.
See you on the 23rd. You bet.
Okay. See you then, Paul. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dog.